cult of HasanAbi. Manuel Esteban Paez Terán, who opposed the training facility, also known as Cop City in Georgia, was murdered. He had a history of environmental activism, and his parents say that he was killed in cold blood. Belkis Terán spoke with her child Manuel every day by WhatsApp from her home in Panama City. She also had names and numbers for some of Manuel's friends in case she didn't hear from the 26-year-old who's protesting Cop City, a planned gigantic training facility being built in a wooded area near Atlanta, Georgia. So by midweek, when she hadn't received a message from Atlanta since Monday, she began to worry. Thursday, around noon, a friend of Manuel's, whose chosen name is Tortuguita, Little Turtle, messaged her with condolences. "I'm so sorry," they wrote. "For what?" she asked. Terán wound up discovering that on Wednesday around 9 a.m., as a yet unnamed officer or officers had shot and killed her son. The shooting occurred in an operation involving dozens of officers from Atlanta Police, DeKalb County Police, Georgia State Patrol, and the Georgia Bureau of Investigation and the FBI. The killing has stunned and shocked not only Tortuguita's family and friends, but also the environmental and social justice movement in Georgia and across the United States. Circumstances surrounding the incident are still unclear, and there are demands for a thorough investigation into the killing and how it could have happened. The police apparently found Manuel in a tent in the South River Forest, southeast of Atlanta, taking part in a protest, now in its second year, against plans to build a $90 million police and fire department training facility on the land and separately a film studio. This is also a very liberal approach. Georgia has a lot of liberal funds coming into it through the movie industry, as you probably recall, as you probably are familiar with. Officials say Manuel shot first at a state trooper without warning, and an officer or officers returned fire, but they have produced no evidence for the claim. The trooper was described as stable and in hospital Thursday. The shooting is unprecedented in the history of U.S. environmental activism, according to experts. It is unprecedented. What's not unprecedented in the history of U.S. environmental activism, however, is killing environmental activists. That has a lot of precedent. As a matter of fact, it's the most precedented thing to happen. These fucking hot dog skin dipshits regularly own, destroy, bully, beat the shit out of environmental activists who in most instances are just fucking like literal crunchy granola dudes who just want to save the environment. It's like old grandmas and shit. Okay? They have not only bullied and beat the shit out of environmental activists, they have tactics to torture them too. Sometimes when you strap yourself on to like one of those like heavy machineries or whatever, cops literally use, what do they call it? Like it's like kinetic torture or something. The fuck is it? We covered it before, like where they hit you in your pressure points deliberately, specifically. It's called pain compliance. Yeah, pain compliance. Yeah, they hit you in your fucking pressure points, and then you end up. They hit you in pressure points specifically in a practice they call pain compliance to you know, harm you and cause irreparable damage usually. They do it at like, yeah, it causes nerve damage. More key info from the activists. So to summarize, one of the cops in Georgia accidentally fired a gun at another cop. This caused all the cops to freak out. Then they proceeded to murder a protester in their frenzy of cowardice. Yes, this sounds about par for the course.
Fire.
Here. Yeah, that makes infinitely more sense than like some random environmental activist like finding a gun somehow and shooting at the cops.
This is Manuel Terran, also known as Tort, the protester in Atlanta who was shot and killed by police during a confrontation. Police allege protesters shot first, but activists dispute the claim and say an officer was struck by friendly fire. On Twitter, one of the organizations involved in the encampment says, quote, "Forest defenders on the ground say they heard a round of about 12 shots fired all at once around 9:04 a.m. this morning. This contradicts the back-and-forth shooting story pushed by police. We have reason to believe the officer shot today was hit by friendly fire and not by the protester who was killed." Activists say this recent raid comes on the heels of months of increasing violence from police. This death dramatically escalated the struggle over the building of Cop City. The Atlanta Police Foundation is building a police militarization facility for police to train in urban warfare, known as Cop City. The plans include military-grade training facilities, a mock city to practice urban warfare in, explosive testing areas, dozens of shooting ranges, and a Black Hawk helicopter landing pad. The project will cost $90 million. $60 million in corporate funding and $30 million in tax dollars. The Atlanta Police Foundation has refused to make the corporate sponsors of the facility public. Activists say the police are blocking public debate and withholding environmental assessment reports. They also say they won't give up on the fight to stop Cop City. The protester who was killed, Tort, was a volunteer medic and mutual aid organizer. They are described by friends as a kind, passionate, and loving person.
I don't believe. I know that like some of the coverage was like, oh, the environmentalist shot first. Don't believe it. I'm sorry. Like, one, cops have not shown any evidence whatsoever. If there was evidence, you bet your fucking ass they would run with it immediately. Okay. First thing would be plastered. They'd be like, this sick freak, this twisted fucking cop killer freak failed in murdering a cop in cold blood. You know what I mean? These fucking pieces of shit lose their fucking minds and unironically act like people are trying to murder them when they get a cold McDonald's burger. Okay? They're like, this person knew I was an off-duty cop and tried to murder me with a McDonald's burger that was cold. When will the death and destruction that these brave boys and girls in the blue withstand end? You know what I mean? Get the fuck out of here. If that person was unironically fucking shooting at them, they would immediately release it. Footage of the event, like, you know, just anything and everything. Anyway, so that's number one. Number two, there's no history of like environmental protesters like killing cops, but there is a history of cops killing or brutally torturing environmental protesters. Okay? It's kind of the thing that happens all the time. Most of these like environmental activists unfortunately get no coverage, partially because they're crusty anarchists that are doing a great job, by the way. They're doing a brilliant and brave thing, okay? And the media rarely ever covers it. And, you know, partially because they are going up against, they're engaging in an anti-capitalist action, trying to disrupt capital forces. And there are a lot of corporate entities involved in this process. It would disrupt numerous industries, okay? That's why there is a Hollywood component in this as well, because they'll probably use Cop City to shoot movies and shit too. That's why there's millions of dollars in corporate backing involved in this. So that's another reason for it. And lastly, and perhaps not the least important component of this, cops shoot other cops all the fucking time. So you want me to believe the least likely scenario over the most likely scenario? Get the fuck out of here. Literally, it's well documented. Friendly fire is a thing that happens, okay? The GBI, which operates under Republican Governor Brian Kemp's orders, has released scanned information and on Thursday night told The Guardian no body camera footage of the shooting exists. Ooh, interesting. Okay. They use they, them pronouns, just so you know. I have not once, I don't think, gendered this person, but thank you for informing me. I saw the other chatters also mentioning this. I cannot misgender someone if I have not gendered them. Okay? At least half a dozen other protesters who were in the forest at the time have communicated to other activists that one single series of shots could be heard. They believe the state trooper could have been shot by another officer or by his own firearm. Meanwhile, both Tehran and local activists are looking into legal action of Manuel's mother told The Guardian, I will go to the U.S. to defend Manuel's memory. I'm convinced the state assassinated in cold blood. Their mother is misgendering them, I guess. But regardless. How is it possible they don't have body camera footage? Oh, come on now. How is it possible? How did that happen so frequently, you know? How? Okay. The incident was the latest in a ramping up of law enforcement raids on the forest in recent months. Protests began late 2021 after the then Atlanta mayor, Keisha Lance Bottoms, announced plans for the training center. The forest had been named in city plans for 4 years earlier as a key part of the efforts to maintain Atlanta's renowned tree canopy as a buffer against global warming and to create what would be the metro area's largest park. Reagan, a widely circulated photo clearly shows members of the SWAT team in Atlanta that killed climate activist Manuel Tehran were wearing body cameras. Tehran's mother says her child was assassinated, so where is the footage? As we all know, just because cops are wearing body cameras does not mean that those body cameras are on. Law tip. I've reviewed hundreds of hours of body-worn camera. Cops often use terms like, you hot, to ask each other if their body cams are on. They often ask that sort of thing right before the cameras get turned off and cops start talking to one another to get their story straight before testifying, which is a real term that police officers use. Lying on the stand is such a commonplace occurrence in the American police force, at least, that they have a fucking term for it called testifying, something I talk about regularly. Anyway, it's a very common thing that they do. Okay. Here are some of the corporate backers of Cop City before we continue with this. The Atlanta Police Foundation helped make ATL the most surveilled city in the United States with its Operation Shield in 2017. Now it's pushing for the Cop City development. Atlanta Police Foundation's corporate backers are Waffle House, JP Morgan and Chase, Wells Fargo, Amazon, Chick-fil-A, Delta Airlines, United Parcel Service, the Home Depot, Inspire Brands, Georgia State University, Atlanta Hawks, and State Farm Arena, Axon Enterprises, previously known as Taser.
$1 million.
Here's a video from the project.
A $90 million training ground in the forest to practice urban warfare tactics. Activists are calling it Cop City and say it will harm black people and the environment.
The facility would be a space where the police could practice tear gas, explosions, bomb testing, have a shooting range, practice high-speed chases. Like, they're literally going to build a mock city of Atlanta to practice different urban warfare tactics. The purpose of this project is to be able to better surveil, better suppress.
Wait, Axon makes the body cameras, formerly known as tasers, so I guess they used to make tasers maybe?
And better prevent liberation movements that directly address the exploitation that Black and working class communities are feeling.
Atlanta actually increased its police budget after Black Lives Matter protests and a movement to defund the police. More than 70% of Atlantans disapprove of Cop City. In 2021, Atlanta's population...
Good luck. You think this is a fucking democracy? This shit happens in Chicago. This shit happened in Chicago under Rahm Emanuel as well, by the way. Doesn't matter. Democratic mayor, Democratic city. Doesn't matter. Your interests and your needs will never be met. Axon body cams turn on immediately when a gun is removed from holster or if a gun goes off, though. So why isn't there footage? I wonder. Maybe they have it's like manufactured obsolescence or planned obsolescence. Maybe they have that in a similar capacity, not over the period of time that you're using the cameras, But every time a gun is fired, it also has a 50-50 chance of just like turning off.
Population was almost 50% black. 20% of Atlantans live in poverty.
The Atlanta police have always been antagonistic towards poor and working class people. They have been active agents of gentrification.
Cop City is proposed to be built on land that included a slave plantation and a prison farm. The construction would cut down part of the South River forest, which helps prevent flooding and protects against extreme heat. Activists against Cop City are occupying the forest, building barricades, and protesting against corporate sponsors to stop construction.
Defund the police, abolish them, and invest in the things that actually keep us safe. We've been ramping up our efforts to get folks in the community trained on things like restorative justice, on medic trainings, on de-escalation tactics, disaster relief, all the things that we know.
I went to Chicago Public High School and we got $22 million to remodel because my high school had asbestos, and Ron Emanuel said, nah, and gave $11 million to the police academy on the south side. That is the Chicago Cop City, by the way. That's what I was referencing. Funds that they got to build that area was by selling additional public land as well. They sold public land, and instead of like using that to reinvesting that back into the community, they reinvested or claimed to reinvest it into the community by building a fucking police academy in the south side. It's awesome. It's great. Hey, they need more training, right? They need more ways of like learning how to murder black people.
Actually keep us safe when we're in crisis. And so we don't need to call the police. Folks won't feel like they need to engage 911, that will have those skills in our community and can meet our own needs.
Although technically it's police and fire, yeah, that second, the fire element is just like, it's a given, right? It's a given. It's to normalize it. It's to soften it a little bit. But it's also usually a given. Like, I mean, fire training is not the main reason why they're building this. Hold on. A thread of the protest after the murder and the police's response. Yeah, Atlanta was not having it.
Keep police out, police, construction, contracting companies. You hear gunshots all the time because there's a police firing.
Hold on, I'm gonna be back.
Yeah, you can hear those shots right there.
Occupying this forest is how activists are resisting the construction of a $90 million state-of-the-art police training center protesters call Cop City. The facility will be developed on one of the largest green spaces in Southeast Atlanta, which has a history of oppression.
All of it. It will be clear-cut.
They cannot wait. They just want to go in and bulldoze everything and then write the history the way that they want to write it.
The fate of the forest is up in the air as the police and forest defenders both refuse to back down.
Those people, to me, through their acts, are actually domestic terrorists.
Major corporations are pouring millions into this project, financially pressuring politicians to build Cop City.
Why did you vote to approve this facility?
Surrounding neighborhoods that are more than 75% black say their concerns have been silenced.
Our opinion doesn't matter. It doesn't count.
It's disrespect. And that's what folks who live here ought to be just enraged about.
They don't give a shit. Did you see FD Signifier's video on this? I did not. Let's look. He deleted it. It's on his B-sides. Can someone link it to me? Play devil's advocate. Wouldn't more training for police be a good thing so they hopefully stop killing people? No, man, because they're not getting trained to de-escalate. This has been an ongoing conversation since the 60s. Their training goes towards more violent tactics, more vicious tactics, not the other way around. When will you learn? Please stop getting sucked into this like liberal propaganda of like, oh, we're going to fix this by fucking, training cops more. No, they're just being trained to be more violent, not the other way around. They never get trained for de-escalation. I'm sorry. Not a thing that happens. It's just they use that as a funding vehicle. You know what I mean? They use that to justify additional funds. Oh, we just don't have enough money for adequate training, they say, over and over again. Okay? But that's not how this shit works. It's just a way to get liberals on board. You can't train your way out of like this institution that was built on violent foundations, okay? To uphold violent practices. That's how it works. Just like you can't train your way out of the top of the hour ad break that I forgot to run and I'm running now at 3:15. You can only subscribe for $5 or for free with a Twitch Prime or by getting gifted a sub, and that's the one way that you can avoid, or the 3 different ways. There's other ways as well, actually, but I can't say them. I have a contractual obligation not to say them. But here's the 3-minute ad break right now, regardless. We're going to move on to docudrama. It's